This is the CreaseCast.
I was literally just walking with Murphy like around like the neighborhood. So like I tried to like visit dealerships like when they're closed because then I don't have some idiot like, you know, jumping down my nuts being like, "Hey, you're looking for a car, bud? Let's show you some brand new 2022s. They're only $87,000." Like I don't like fuck off. I don't need to hear it. Like I know what I'm looking for. I don't need to talk to a sales rep about it. I'll come to you with what I want to buy. And so I hit up the local dealership and like I'm just like walking around looking at all like the beaters and whatever. And I'm like, "Hey, did someone break into this car? Like, am I in danger being on this lot after hours with a car with shattered windows?" And I get up to it and I'm like, "Oh no, whoever was working the lot on Saturday rolled down all the windows, I guess because of like the heat. And when they were closing up shop, just forgot about it because all the windows were completely down. It'd been pouring rain all Sunday, and it was not leather seats. It was like fabric, so everything in there is probably completely soaked.
Oh my
And
God.
the keys were sitting in the fucking cup holder. So like
That
the
how?
one saving grace was it's one of those cars that has like the dealership branding all over it. So like if you were to steal it, you'd have to like get all the decals and whatever peeled off of it. You'd have to strip the VIN, you'd have to repaint it, like all that stuff. Like you wouldn't be able to get away with it. But like in my head, I'm just like, there is nothing stopping me from getting into this car, pulling out the keys, and just joyriding for like
Yeah.
hours if I really wanted to. Like there was nothing to stop me.
I understand leaving like the windows open. Like everyone's made that mistake before. How the
Mhm.
hell do you leave the keys in there too? Like, does it
I
not occur to you at any point that you didn't? Not only did you not lock the car or turn like let drop down the windows, you're like you just don't think about it. Like that's
I
wild.
I'm assuming it was some dude's job to like ferry people to and from their appointments to pick up their cars from like the garage or whatever, like from it being like worked on.
Right.
And then like I guess towards the end of the day they were like, "Oh, I'll go out and I'll move the car again and put up all the windows or whatever when I need to." And they just like forgot because it was like a really gorgeous day on Saturday. Like we actually had
Yeah,
a summer Saturday for a change.
we sure did.
Not so much Sunday or today, where
Yeah.
it's like I'm like if you're watching our YouTube channel, like you can see I've been wearing a sweater all day because it's been like legitimately like cold. Like
Yeah.
and it's July 4th, everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, that's when we're recording, everybody. Welcome. It's CreaseCast episode number 1,676.
Yes.
It is July 4th, 5 o'clock PM East or no Pacific, 8
Pacific
p.m.
time.
Eastern.
Yes.
We don't have any trades to break yet, but we've been
Not
channeling
yet.
some bad juju. So maybe by the end of the episode, we'll get a trade announced. That's right when we're about to sign off, because that usually tends to happen with us. If something happens that's a little spicy. But all the teams right now, they are in Montreal for the draft. All 31 have landed. Can we talk about how dumb it is that the draft's happening on a Thursday?
Yeah, what's up with
What
that?
the hell is that?
That's never happened before. Like, why is this why are like are they just trying to give room between the draft and the first day of free agency? Because if that's
I
the case, you could
guess.
have just moved free agency to Thursday.
I know
Like,
it's so dumb.
what?
And like, who wants to watch? Like, who wants to sit down and be like, "Yeah, let's watch the first round at 3 or 2 p.m. on a Thursday"? Like,
Not
people have jobs, man.
Yeah, not only that, but also let's watch rounds 2 through 7 on
Yeah,
a
on
Friday
Friday.
immediately following a long weekend. So where
Yeah,
we're
totally
definitely
makes
at
sense.
work and are not going to be at home watching TV.
Yeah.
Like I don't know whose bright idea that was. Like, I mean, I guess it's like, okay, the draft isn't really for fans per se. Like it's really just a business. It's a business deal that happens to have some TV
Mhm.
elements tacked on. But like, I
People
don't know.
tune
But
in.
yeah, Thursday? Really? Yeah.
Yeah,
So weird.
it doesn't make any sense. But like, I
So
mean,
weird.
that's like speaking of like we talked about the last episode about the NHL and NFTs and how they're just completely late to the party to understanding their audience.
Oh
This is the
God.
exact same thing, you know, like they probably got I don't even know how many untold hundreds of thousands of people interested in the NHL because of the Colorado Tampa series, and instead of riding that high by having like a big show on Friday night or Saturday night, they have it on the middle of the week.
Yep.
I'm sure that's like a venue thing. Like maybe Montreal, like they were like, we can't have the venue on the weekend, but we can have it on the few days before.
That would be, I would hope so, because like that's the only reasonable reason you could choose to go in that direction. Because it's like obviously you can't be like, well, we'll wait until next week and then like have a literally like 2-week gap in between the end of the finals and the draft. Like
well, also because the Montreal draft, right, was supposed to be last year or the year before, but they canceled both in-person drafts because of COVID. So I wonder if it was just like, look, Montreal, when we get back to being in person, is going to get the default next draft when we can start it. But then they were like, oh, this is problematic because the venue's booked. So
yeah, we got
you guys can still host the draft, but it's just gonna have to be on like a weird day.
You can come in on Saturday, but you will have to do the entire draft during a Coldplay concert. Like
yeah, there you
go. They're gonna Chris Martin's just gonna be on stage just belting it out, and you're gonna have to try and make yourself be heard at your newest pick from the Kingston Frontenacs, like in the middle of one of those songs. Like, go for it. You can try.
That'd be really funny. Like actually, like they host it in like one of those like shitty hotel like conference rooms where it's like just like 180 people crammed into this like 75-person room. And they're all like elbowed at shoulder.
They used to do it like that. Like
room
that was
coated in smoke and booze. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. Like I'm just trying. Like it would be very like God next year. Like just knowing the NHL, they're gonna find a way to make it worse. They're gonna be like, okay, next year we're gonna host it in the metaverse or something.
What? Yeah. As Facebook is like crumbling as an organization, they're like, we're hosting it in VR.
I mean, VR is cool, but like the metaverse aspect of it is very not. Like
it is very uncool.
Oh boy.
But yeah, let's get into some Canucks news because there's quite a bit. We kind of have some spillover from the last episode because obviously got sidetracked with Hall of Fame stuff and the Colorado Avalanche winning the cup. So it was like, didn't really want to talk about like random signings, but we are fully into the offseason now, and the Canucks finally have time on their side. They didn't run out this year because they are busy to start this year. Season's been over for a couple days, and there have been 6 or 7 contracts signed, 4 or 5 players that are just like officially like dead to the organization. We have a complete overhaul of the coaching staff. Like, remember last year or the year before when Tyler Toffoli waited 6 days into free agency for a contract from Vancouver and it never came? And then Jim Benning, with the longest UFA negotiating window in the history of the NHL, said they didn't have enough time.
Yeah. God, you know what something reminded me of that recently. I think it was in relation, I think, to a story we'll talk about later, which is the Ryan McDonagh trade, where people were kind of talking about how like all the things all the ways the Lightning routinely find to solve their cap issues. And which made, I forget who it was, but somebody tweeted about like, this makes me just believe that like NHL teams don't actually try nearly as hard to solve cap problems as they say they do.
Yeah.
Which would fully scan. And like that, that makes total sense for what the Jim Benning era was, particularly that offseason was, where
it makes sense that like in this league, remember when like Toronto and Carolina would be a part of 3-way trades, and at that time it was like, whoa, this is so innovative. And it's like, it's really not.
No,
it's very simple, guys. It's not that crazy, but like, because they did it like twice in like a single season, it was like, whoa, these guys are on the brink of breaking new ground. And it was like,
people are offer sheeting other guys. Like,
the avenues by which teams can improve their club are just never, like, rarely explored. in the creative sense. It's just always what's the most straightforward way from point A to point B. There's never like well, if we take detour C, we can get to point D a lot faster than going through A, B, C, and D. But no, they just don't think that way because it's like, well, I have a hockey trade with Matthew Highmore for, a Hobie Waker winner. That solves my immediate problem, but I don't know about the future.
And I don't want to upset any of my other hockey buddies, right?
Yes. My friend that I worked with 8 years ago for 2 years before we were both fired. Can't upset him.
We're gonna be golfing in Boca Raton at some point this season, so we're gonna. I don't want that to be icy when we're in the golf cart. Like that's how it goes. And then
it is like it's like the old boys club mentality of like, look, I can't make my friend look stupid. I can't make myself look stupid, and we all are in agreement that we can't make each other look stupid. Otherwise, we get fired, and there's only so many of these jobs to go around. So we're going to be as respectful as possible, but respect doesn't win you cups, and that's why cold, calculated murderers like Joe Sakic and Julien Brisebois have built monstrous teams through their ability to cut players when they need to at the highest price possible. And that's how you got to do it. You can't be attached to your players. And unfortunately, the last regime was way too attached. Like, remember when Botch reported that the Canucks, like under Benning, got offers for like Brandon Sutter up to like first round picks worth of like picks for Brandon Sutter, and instead of just like jumping on it and selling high, they kept him because they're like, oh, well, whatever they see in him must be something worth keeping.
He's irreplaceable. It's like, no, that's not how that works.
Offload him. You should have done it. But anyway, we're not going to revisit the past, folks.
Yeah,
we're going to revisit the current and the future because that is actually exciting and not miserable. So first things first, Brock Boeser signs an extension. So again, the whole running out of time thing, I did not expect a Brock Boeser extension to be done before that July 1st window where they had to file for club elected arbitration. Just like out of pure Stockholm syndrome, like it would have just like under the last regime, there would have 900 billion% been heading to club elected arbitration because there's no way they would have been able to source out a deal properly. But this group did it. Emily Casongay, pat yourself on the back because making Brock go long with a 3-year deal so that the AAV could be brought down below 7 million. That is a tidy bit of business for Broccoli. He's obviously an incredible producer, had a down year amidst like a ton of difficulty in his personal life. Like, clearly going through a lot. So the fact that, he's willing to take that, cut in pay, and I'm using air quotes because it's a cut from 7.5 million to 6.65 million over 3 years, like, is not bad at all. And I like this for him because he strikes me as the type that's going to be like, oh, well, for the next 3 years, I'm going to show them why I'm worth 7.5 or more. Like that just like strikes me as the type that he is. And so this is one of those contracts where, the last regime, which we refer to a lot on this podcast, was terrible at, which was paying guys for value so that the contract was a surplus value instead of just being like a negative asset. Like Tanner Pearson, he's a really good player, solid two-way player, but the rate that they're paying for him makes it kind of just like a net neutral. Like he is what he's paid for, but if you were able to shave that contract down to be like a $2 million deal or whatever, then you're talking serious surplus value. Now he's just okay. So this Boeser deal, damn good value. As a surplus, you love to see it, especially when it kicks off, like the draft week, it kicks off free agency. Like it basically sets the tone for what to expect from this management group that is obviously looking to build some rapport with the fan base that has very little faith in the organization.
Yeah, not even just the fans, but also the players themselves who have talked about before how they kind of felt they've gotten left in the dark on a few too many times in the past on what's been on the goings on of the team and everything. And like, I'm just thinking back to, again, the start of last season when you and I did what, like 5 or 6 episodes of the show in September before the Pettersson and Hughes contracts finally got done in like the last couple of games of the preseason. And
Yeah.
we kind of wrote that off as like not a victory per se, but as like well, you know what? They didn't miss any games. Good, fine, whatever kind of deal. But
Yeah.
you know how much better it is that they got Brock Boeser's contract done now, and we're not going to spend the next 2 months worrying
Or
about
being
whether
like,
or not
yeah.
they're going to lose him for nothing. Like some team might offer sheet him for a way better price,
Mm,
or like
an unmatchable amount.
yeah, an unmatchable amount or something like that. Or just that he might even just get dealt entirely because they don't feel like paying the price for him.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of thing that I was like so worried about going into this. I honestly didn't factor in any way that there was going to get a deal was going to get done before the
Yeah.
free agency, let alone the draft. So the fact that they got this done and it is below that very particular, like that qualifying price is incredible. Like that's an incredible start to your offseason, and one of your biggest like headaches going into the summer, into the offseason, already dealt with and taken care of within a week of getting there. And like, yeah, like it brings more certainty and stability to the team. And like you've said, and like you and I have both said on this show before, like the Canucks, if you're, or any NHL team for that matter, if you're running your team properly, guys will be willing to take a pay cut to play for you. Like if you're like, they're not going to do it just because you ask them really nicely. You have to give them quantifiable, legitimate reason to want to come in and play for your organization for less money than they could make elsewhere. So if you're doing so, that this is the kind of case where you can really see that kind of working in their favor, working out for them here, right? Where you've got a guy who 100% we know for a guarantee could have gotten at least a little bit more on that contract just by taking the qualifying offer, right? Like
Yeah.
he 100% could have
He
gotten
could have
more
just taken
money.
the 1 year and been like, you know what, I want to maximize my value moving forward. But he didn't
Yep.
do that. He wanted to stay in Vancouver because he trusts the process. He likes it in the town. He likes his teammates. Like, you love to see it, which is
Yeah.
good because also, like, on that note, just like considering where the team was at last offseason, where, you know, Nate Schmidt wanted out, Braden Holtby wanted out, like so much like so that Nate Schmidt waived to go to Winnipeg. Like, that's just how bad a place it was to be playing in Vancouver. So to have, you know, a player being like, yeah, I'll take a shave on my AAV if it means I get to still be in Vancouver. Like, that's a good sign. It's a
That's a
little
great
victory.
That's a great sign. It's a great sign, especially for a management team coming in brand new, having all of this kind of not I don't like this different like messes to kind of juggle and figure out. Like, and that includes just the regular. I'm not even talking about say just like what the last regime left them. I'm talking about just the general everything that else that comes with running an NHL franchise properly and running a winning team. So, like, yeah, if like the fact that they've got Boeser locked in here, ready to go for next season, all of a sudden your wing situation looks really, really really good going into the year. Like, even if say they aren't able to, you know, there's some guys we'll talk about that like they might be on the move before then, just to kind of open up more cap space for other guys to come in. But like, let's say they just go in with the group that they've got now, like save for like a couple like minor changes here and there. Like all of a sudden you're looking at a group that's like, okay, you got Boeser still, you've got Kuzmenko coming in, you've still got Pearson, you've got Miller, you've got all of these other guys. Like you've got a decent looking, your wing situation looks really, really good for what you have. And yeah, now you have a little bit of extra cap space to work with because you managed to like get that contract done in under the amount you were anticipating coming in at. So that's a good start.
Yeah, it's definitely like a positive to be getting a deal like this out of the way first, because how much did we chastise the organization for, you know, acquiring Oliver Ekman-Larsson and signing Connor Garland before they had Hughes and Pettersson signed?
God, yes.
Like the timing wasn't good because that left the team with even less negotiating power for two of the most important contracts they needed to sign. And I've talked about it all season, like that Elias Pettersson bridge is just going to age terribly. Like if they had just not traded Oliver Ekman-Larsson at the time, or for Ekman-Larsson or Garland, that left them with, $20 million to sign 2 kids to long-term deals, and probably would have been a lot cheaper than what, one of them's going to be in a couple of years if he keeps playing at his current pace. He's going to be like a $13 million player when they could have had him for 9 years at, 10 or whatever it is, which would have been a bargain by the time the deal was done. So
God, yeah. Like I was thinking today, like I was looking at some of I've been looking at some of just the old numbers today, like going through Cap Friendly on certain things. Like the Luongo cap recapture is finally coming off the books now. Like it's officially out of the way.
It was just replaced with
It'll
Braden
be
Holtby's buyout and Halak's bonus overage, which
whoopsie. Which again, neither of which are this management group's fault. That's not anything.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's not theirs.
But
it's still the last. But it's just kind of funny.
But then you just go and look at like, by the way, why did they give this penalty again? And then you realize the contract he signed at the time was like 8 years. Well, totally legal for starters, which it pisses me off to no end. But also, it's only for like $5.5 million a year. Like that was the
it was like such a bargain.
It's like, Jesus Christ, you had a Hall of Fame goaltender on your roster locked in for, I think, what would have been, had he finished the entire contract, 12 years at $5.5 million. Like just insanity that they could.
Pretty good deal, I guess.
Yeah, just insanity. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, oh man, like if you could have that opportunity again, you'd take it in a heartbeat, right? With any guy. And yeah, like, and the thing that also kind of gets glossed over, that when it comes to like not signing the guy right away with Pettersson and Hughes last year, is also like, because you don't know what number that final number is going to be for sure, you have to leave that money available regardless of what you need to get done in the offseason, right? So even if Boeser didn't get signed now, they'd have to go into the offseason preparing to have at least $7.5 million. Waiting, and they can't use just in case. And which would have been a huge issue for getting any sort of contract done, because now that you have that money already guaranteed, squared away, you have a lot more money of like, okay, now we know exactly what we have left in the pot to play with here before when we get into free agency and what we try and do there.
Yeah. All right, but that wasn't the only signing on July 1st, which was kind of crazy, because on top of Boeser, they signed Jack Rathbone on top of a bunch of guys for their AHL depth, which we kind of glossed over in our last episode, so we won't really get into it. But Jack Rathbone was kind of the other major deal that was signed by Patrick Allvin. 2-year, one-way contract, which tells you a lot, because usually a one-way contract is code for, we think you're going to probably be in the NHL for the most of this contract. Even if you don't, we believe in you enough to give you a one-way deal, so you're making your full NHL league minimum salary no matter where you play it, because we believe that you're going to be in the show no matter what. Can kind of like, between the Rathbone contract and Boeser, like you kind of get an idea for what they're going to be looking to do in the offseason too, like who they're going to be after. It's probably going to be replacements for Brad Hunt. It's going to be replacements for maybe one of Matthew Highmore, Juho Lammikko, like cheap guys. Like it's not going to be like anything crazy. They're probably not going to be going big game hunting for defense unless they manage to trade Myers or OEL. But it's like, you kind of get like the idea, like the shape is crystallizing on this defense group, which is exciting, because how many years was it just like, well, here's a bunch of players, we'll see what happens at training camp. We don't know where any of them are going to be, but we've got Pullman, we've got Burrows, we've got Shen, we've got Hamonic, maybe we've got Jordy Ben, we've got all these guys, not a single one of them with like a defined role. Yeah.
And to be fair, like those were their good years of doing that, where they're like kind of like, okay, you're like a little bit like, all right, they're getting a bunch of lottery tickets. Maybe one will hit the jackpot. You might work out. Whereas before it was like, what was it? It was just like, here, we're gonna trot out.
Here's Michael Del Zotto with
Michael Del Zotto,
with Spiza, and then
Lucas Spiza's the big one.
And then this like the 7th best defenseman was like literally 21-year-old Ashton Sautner, who was in his like first year
Yeah.
of the AHL. It's like that was the depth planning.
One game of Philip Holm, like just
Gotcha.
just a hodgepodge of great of like legendary like guys who Philip Larson. That was a fun one. That was a fun.
That was
year.
a great year for like the year of just some dudes.
Yeah,
Or that
of some
that
guy.
meme I always see like pop up where it's like some dudes will just sit around naming hockey players and have the best time. Like that's kind of what the Canucks were for their defense for like at least every year before Quinn Hughes and after Kevin Bieksa.
That's our show. That's basically the whole premise of this show is like,
naming guys that like 70% of people never heard of.
Yeah. Oh, hey,
what's a Madison Bowie?
Yeah, remember Alex Burmistrov?
Like when he retired the second he was cut from camp.
That was okay. That was funny as hell. Like that,
that was
like,
just like, oh, I can't make this garbage team. Well, fuck, I must be washed.
I think he had like one goal in like the first 2 games. Didn't like that he was getting like no minutes because he wasn't that good. And he was like, "How dare you? I'm the best player." Like he big timed them a little bit. It's like, okay, settle down, Alex.
Settle down, bud. You weren't even good in Winnipeg. Like, just relax.
There's some hilarious names going back there. I'd love to do some videos on like, remember this Canuck, this obscure Canuck that has like the weirdest backstory ever, like Peter Nedved, guy who was really good for like 1 year and then forced his way out to St. Louis on an offer sheet, and then they got basically.
Well, if you're doing like videos, you have to do it with like recent people because people like that are young don't give a shit about Peter Nedved anymore, you know?
But do they not give a shit enough because nobody talks about it? Like, it's one of those, oh, this would actually be really interesting if people actually like knew about it. Like, people would be kind of into this.
It would be interesting if like the Canucks had won anything in their history. You know, if Peter Nedved like leaving caused them, like was directly the cause of them winning the cup or losing the cup, you'd care. But because it's just like a history of like failure, it's like, oh, it's just another guy.
I will see your history of the Canucks theory with and raise it by one history of the Seattle Mariners documentary, which is literally about the one team in the MLB that's never made a World Series. And it's fascinating because they've literally just kind of just been there throughout the entire history of their lives. They've had like stars walk in here and there, but then most of it is just about here's this really weird story about a guy who tried to like cut a baseball in half with a thumbtack on the pitch and totally got caught for it because it's obvious. Like, that
seems pretty damn obvious to me.
Yeah, and he ended up becoming like a great pitching coach. Like that was like the kind of thing. That's the story. That's like there's some hilarious stories in there from that I would I think the Canucks.
I believe you've suggested that to me before, so I'll have to check it out sometime.
It's hilarious. But we don't have time to go into that.
No, we don't. So on top of the players that were signed, there were a few people that were listed as not returning to the Canucks. These are all, speaking of, just some guys. So Nick Patan, who was good in Abbotsford, fine in the NHL. He's obviously gone. He's one of those quad A talents, you know. He's always going to light up the AHL whenever he's there, but like NHL, like he's just not quite there. Like he's just like too small or doesn't quite have the split speed or whatever. Ashton Sautner, who was like, you know, he was signed like in 2013, like by Gillis.
No,
he's been around forever.
Sorry, who? Guillaume Brisebois?
No, Ashton Sautner.
Or Ashton Sautner.
That would actually make sense because Guillaume Brisebois is like has been in the AHL like since like his second year. So it feels like he's been around forever, but he was drafted like 7 years ago or something. But it feels like he's been around for like a decade.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Ashton Sautner actually has
literally a decade. Just been in the system because he was signed and then didn't debut in the AHL till like 2 years after. And then he like played out he had like 17 games in the NHL 1 year, and then that was it. So yeah, he's not coming back because he's obviously aged out of the system. They're making space for all these Swedish and other players that they're signing for free out of other leagues. And then sadly, Brad Hunt, local boy from Maple Ridge, Brad Hunt, not returning. Well, he's not technically not returning. He's just like exploring his options, which is code for see ya. Which is weird because like how much like was talked about like how Brad Hunt is really in good with Bruce Boudreau. You know,
Yeah.
it's like if you're Brad Hunt, wouldn't you want to stick around in the organization because you'd have a leg up on pretty much anyone else that comes into the team?
Yeah. I wonder if he just sees the writing on the wall a little bit. Like there's like it's a case of like, well, they're already so jammed in the middle of like when it comes to the contracts they already have, especially on
Sure,
that right side where there's like a bunch of guys who you are pretty sure will be back, whether or not that's the right call to make. Where it's like okay, Pullman, I don't think they're like we'll talk about it later, but Pullman's probably going to be here. Myers might be here. Like there's a lot of guys still there that, there's already basically a set six going into the year. And that's
hmm
without including guys like Kyle
like
Burrows into the
or Brady
mix
Keeper or
or
whoever else
Brady
is going to show up
Keeper.
at camp. Yeah, so it's like kind of
Yeah.
like it's definitely like a maybe also too like the organization was like, look, Brad, you can explore your options. We're not exactly keen on re-signing you because Bruce Boudreau will play you as much as he can, but we want Jack Rathbone to get reps in the NHL. Like
Yeah.
it could literally come down to something like that where they're just like, we can't have Bruce Boudreau having his guy in the NHL right now because like we need to see what we've got in this Rathbone kid.
Yeah. You
So
need to limit as many and as many like
excuses or reasons
veteran
for the
yeah.
coach to take the veteran approach instead of what they want to do, which is to clearly go younger. And
Yeah.
that's also kind of what their offseason moves like seem to be right now too, is like between Archdeep Baines, or Niels Oman or Linus Carlson, like there's just like a bunch of and Philip Johansson, like they're basically going for all these kids that are like 23 or under because they're like we're shifting the age curve down because we need some guys to come up as our core develops. And so like Nick Patan, Brad Hunt, like they just don't fit, or Ashton Stotner, they just don't fit the age gap anymore. So it's like it's reasonable for them to be like, look, these guys are dime a dozen. You can get them on waivers any day of the year. You can get a Brad Richardson for free midway through the season, no problem, and they won't hurt you when you pick them up. So we can't afford the contract slot on these guys anymore, which fair enough.
Yeah,
But
it'd be nice to see them in like Abbotsford on an AHL deal or something if you could keep
yeah,
them, but
if you
like
could, or if they were willing to sign it, but like that's probably just not going to happen, right?
yeah, and like again, like we've with Rutherford in particular, his history with the Penguins was straight up built on how well they did at bringing in guys who you'd never heard of in your life to play
Mhm.
with Sidney Crosby and suddenly become 30 goal scorers like Brian
Yeah.
Rust and Connor Sheary and like those guys, like the Mark Donks and Buzz Flibbits as everyone puts it.
Mhm.
And that's the kind of thing that they're gonna go for here, and you can already kind of see the them putting that together a little bit here. And it's like, okay, if you can get that kind of a system going where you just keep finding more and more guys through your AHL system, like who can just fill in for a year or two and then you let them go for like the big payday elsewhere. That's
Yeah.
what you want. That's the kind of system that keeps your core going for as long as humanly possible.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. This is the big one, though. This was the big news from the other day. I had plans, and then I had to delay my plans because I couldn't believe some of these coaching decisions. So,
Yes.
if you did not know, Brad Shaw, who was the team's generalist slash defensive coach last season, took over the defensive side when Scott Walker, Scott Walker or Scott Young? Scott
Scott
Walker, I think.
Walker. Scott
Yeah,
Young
Scott
was hired
Walker.
this week as well.
Right, Scott Walker. Man, they got these hockey men need more unique names. Like it's
Oh,
just ridiculous.
oh, we're entering the Caden era of the NHL right now from
Where every
any
coach rhymes
WHL
with
draft.
Caden.
Well, like every NHL draft is full or like the Bantam draft for the dub is always like, oh, it's a bunch of different ways to spell Caden. Like it's just all these like kids. Yeah. We're gonna get so many
when we're
Cadens in the
when
NHL.
we're when we're like turning 70 or whatever, then like all those Cadens become coaches and they take over. So it's just like every single coach in the NHL like rhymes with Jaden or is a
Yeah,
Jaden, like whatever.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so Bradshaw was out. He is moving to Philadelphia to be John Tortorella's assistant. They have experience together with Columbus, so that made sense. In his stead, comes Mike Yeo, who comes in as the new generalist assistant coach. Kind of funny because Bruce Boudreau replaced Mike Yeo as coach of the Minnesota Wild when
Oh
Yeo was
man,
fired. So it's
I
kind of like
forgot about that. That's
really
funny.
funny. Like
That's great.
now that bunch of Minnesota boys together again. Um, but the big surprise that I think caught a lot of people off guard was Trent Cull being promoted to assistant coach to run the defense and penalty kill in place of Bradshaw/Scott Walker. Bit surprising here. I mean, it is surprising because I guess like he was never really given a look as a possible assistant coach while Travis Green was still the coach. They brought up Jason King to run the power play last season. He's the only real holdover from the Travis Green era is Jason King. So now it's like you have two of your former Utica/Abbotsford guys now helping run the bench in the NHL. Bit interesting because, as we know, Trent Cull's track record of developing prospects in the AHL wasn't great. You can blame a lot of that on, whether that's not enough good quality prospects or if the AHL team was given enough financial resources to develop players properly. Internally, apparently, they had like a really small budget set aside for their AHL club, so it's not really a shock that like they were kind of just like left to their own devices to try and make it like a worthwhile organization. But obviously, it was like a second thought to them. A third thought, really. Like they'd put zero thought into the AHL club over the past few years. Last year was the one time they did, and it was only because they had to, because it was local. So Trent Cull gets promoted, which, good for him. I'm like he's been in like an assistant or a head coach in the AHL for like ever. So it's like, I mean, he's finally there, which is good. I kind of saw a lot of people like freaking out, like, oh, this is such a disaster. And it's like, the guy is actually like good at getting really good performances out of like players. Like he has like a track record of like veteran players coming into the AHL and having like career bests in terms of production. Um, Same thing with the farm not having like a good AHL budget. They've never really given Trent Cull like a mobile defense, but every time he's had mobile defenders on his blue line, they've had really good productive years. Or if they have like any kind of like good offensive IQ, they get career years out of them. Brogan Rafferty had a 65-point year in his rookie season. Jack Rathbone had a career year where he was like fifth in defenseman production for kids under 24 years old. Like he gets a lot out of quite a little. It's just there wasn't much coming up the pipeline while he was a head coach, so he gets like a pretty bad rap. Some of it we can't talk about on this podcast, as you and I know. It's the old the tap in the nose thing. Can't really talk about it, but you and I know a few things about some players' developments going a little haywire. But anyway, that's one thing. And then the new AHL hire, Jeremy Colleton, who was Chicago Blackhawks former coach, came into one of the shittier situations as a head coach when you're, what was he, 35 at the time when he was hired? 34 maybe? Like he was hired mid-season, or was it mid-season, I think?
I forget if it was
I think he
mid-season,
was.
but it was like either way, it was to replace
like their
Joel Quenneville.
Their like stud coach who led them through 3 cups, had been with that core for like over a decade. Like, yeah, that's kind of tough to be like, hey kid, you have no NHL head coach experience. You're gonna have to deal with this core that has been together for fucking ever and tell them they're playing like shit. Like, good luck, dude. Are you kidding?
A little bit of a throwing the lamb to the slaughter a little bit,
Which is pretty on brand for the Chicago Blackhawks organization. Let's be real. It's no surprise that they kind of screwed over someone like Jeremy Colleton because they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. He had coached the Rockford IceHogs before moving up into the NHL, so he does have AHL head coaching experience. He also has a connection to Patrick Allvin through, I believe, Mora IK of the Hockey Allsvenskan, because I think it was Allvin had like, as the director of European scouting, like had ties to Mora IK and kind of knew what their development program was like, and obviously remember what Colleton was capable of, and coupled that with the AHL, just kind of made sense. So big dramatic shift in Canucks coaching staff, and that doesn't even mention they lost their goalie coach too.
Yeah.
Curtis Sanford gets poached by the Toronto Maple Leafs to become their NHL goaltending coach. So we talked about this on our last episode. The Canucks goalie pipeline's the one thing that's never really been a problem. Apparently, coaching as well, because this is the second coach that the Toronto Maple Leafs have acquired directly from the Canucks to be on their main head of staff. First was Manny Malhotra, who was just an associate at the time with Vancouver, to become a full-on bench coach in Toronto as their defense guy. And now they got Curtis Sanford as their NHL goalie coach to work with Jack Campbell to, I guess, make him good, or maybe to make Petr Mrazek worth his contract again. Maybe that's the idea. They're going to salvage him using Sanford, which would be pretty funny. But obviously, Sanford has like a good rep with the AHL club. He, I know Mike DiPietro, Seelovs, and Spencer Martin and Demko have all gotten plenty of work with him in the past, and they've all spoken very highly of him and his work ethic. So it's not a terrible loss, because again, it's just your AHL goalie coach. But sucks to find now, if you're Ian Clark, you need someone that you can rely on and that believes in your system, which was the biggest, bonus that people used to praise about Curtis Sanford while he was the AHL goalie coach, is that he was an extension of Ian Clark and what Ian Clark brought to the table. So it was like the easy transition for goalies to come up to the NHL, because you knew exactly what was expected of you and how Ian Clark wanted you to play. Maybe Ian Clark's got other guys. Maybe he's got Eddie Lach in his back pocket. Maybe Eddie Lach comes in as the AHL goalie coach. You never know. He was tweeting the other day about wanting to come back to Vancouver.
Yeah.
So
why not?
If that happens, you can clip this and be like, we called it.
Yeah, we predicted this.
Yeah.
We made it happen. With Sanford, that's the biggest loss, is that extension of Ian Clark that he was, and the coach and that. But you know what? The nice thing about having the AHL team at Abbotsford now is that it's going to be a lot easier to kind of find that extension again, because Ian Clark now can just drive down the road to work with the goalie coaches on things as well, and with the netminder prospects when he gets the opportunity to. So it's like, it can be, that system can still work, and they can still definitely find a guy to work with him there. So the thing with the coaching hires is that I am a little concerned about just looking at the group in terms of like, okay, Trent Cull is a guy where it's like, okay, he's the head coaching experience, like, and whether or not the prospect development was necessarily the best in that regard, especially like in terms of how many guys have graduated to the NHL from there. I do also I'm also like, well, okay, in the NHL, that won't be his job anymore. So it's going to be the job that he was
up to not worry about that anymore.
Yeah. The job that he was good at in Utica and in Abbotsford was getting results out of the team that he had at his disposal. And that worked. Whereas the development didn't. In the NHL, that's going to be his sole role, is doing that. In fact, it's going to be even narrower than that. It'll just be focusing on what part of coaching that he works best at, which I guess is going to be defense for him.
Yeah.
Mike Yeo is an interesting one for me, just because I'm like, I've seen the track records in like Philly and Minnesota, and I'm just kind of like, okay, well, what's this? What are you gonna bring here? Like, is this just another? Is this one of those guys where it's like he's doing the thing they did with him in Alain Vigneault in Philly, where he's kind of just like, well, if the current head coach screws up at any point, you're in charge. Like, is that what this is?
Doesn't it feel like they've just got insurance everywhere?
A little bit.
if Bruce Boudreau doesn't work out and the team plays like shit again, you have Mike Yeo, you have Jeremy Colleton, and technically Trent Cull,
Yeah.
all like experienced head coaches, whether that's at the NHL or AHL level, ready to just like fill in basically should Bruce Boudreau not stick around after this year, or if he's even moved on from in the middle of this season. So it's like
Yeah.
if you're Bruce Boudreau, you're probably looking over your shoulder like, ooh,
Yeah.
a lot of guys coming after my job here.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I have my questions. I have my concerns about Mike Yeo, but again, he's just an assistant coach. It's not a lot to lose sleep over at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I when you can see I'd like to see the product on the ice first there. Jeremy Colleton is the weirdest one to me, just based on okay. So, first of all, apparently I didn't realize this. He was the Hawks head coach for 4 years. Did you know it was 4 years? Because that
And
I was like, I could have sworn it was like a year and a half, but nope, it was a full 4 years. He was the
you,
coach of the Hawks.
you know what's the interesting thing too is they fired him after like another dumpster year, but like they beat Edmonton in the bubble.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
They beat Edmonton in the bubble and then proceeded to crap the bed like what was it, like 0-9 to start the year, something ridiculous like that.
yeah.
Like,
So it's like sure, he got like terrible results, but like when like the games mattered, like he found a way to shut down the best player in
yeah.
the NHL. Like, come on, that's like what you're supposed to do. Is like as much as we make fun of it, like the get in and anything can happen. Like that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, it wasn't like who was in net for that team even? I think it was like I was it Corey Crawford
Uh,
still? I think it might have even been like Colin Delia or
I was gonna
something.
say it's probably Colin Delia or something,
Like
or
something
like Malcolm
like
Subban still.
it might have been
Right,
Malcolm
maybe.
Subban. It's in like yeah. And yeah, so but like and but I will say, but then I look at like some of the stuff that he did do there where it's like where like some of the things where it's like I think at one point I want to say I feel like at one point he had like Patrick Kane playing with like Ryan Carpenter or something, and it was like, and like you could clearly see the team was not happy. And then if I remember, I think there was at one point like right before he got fired where he like I forget what he exactly said, but it was like there was something I remember. I feel like he said something in an interview or what have you that was like super like, oh, this is not
Wasn't
a
it like
good look for your coach to be
Wasn't it
saying.
like I think I know what you're talking about. He basically came out and was like, "Yeah, if my players actually cared about playing, like I would have better results." Like he's basically just like throwing it on them, like they don't give a shit.
Oh, yeah, something like that, which, like, whether or not that's true, it's like one of those, "Oh,
You don't say it.
you don't say that out loud. That's not gonna make them like you more." Like, yeah, and it definitely screamed as one of those cases where it was like, "Oh, the veterans were like, okay, go sit at the kids' table, buddy. We got this," and, like, basically started running their own bench, which is a problem.
A little bit.
Yeah, but like, so I have issues with that, but again, it's the AH, and granted, it's the AHL where he's had some success, but I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I kind of hoped for Abbotsford's next coach, if they were going to promote Trent Cull, which they did,
Mhm.
that they would go for somebody completely new because, like, because if you're going to have a guy developing in your developing your players, I don't know. I'd kind of want to see somebody new come in who could potentially be a big part of your long-term future. I don't look at Jeremy Colleton and go, "Oh, this guy's going to be the head coach for the Abbotsford Canucks forever." We're going to look at him in the same reverence as like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what like Roy Sommer was for like the San Jose farm team where he moved with them for like 8 different cities. Like and was the head coach the whole time. Like I don't see that with him. So I'm interested to see how he manages a bench an AHL bench but again, with a younger group, maybe that won't be an issue.
Yeah, maybe. Like I said, it's probably just all insurance kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right. So now that we've kind of got over the what they have done, let's kind of get into what we think they still need to do because the Canucks still have quite a few RFAs and UFAs at their disposal. The main ones being Juho Lammikko and Matthew Highmore, who are just, I mean, pretty standard RFAs. You just qualify their current offer at 15% higher than what their old deals were. I think the total combined is like 1.9 million, which would be less than what they less than the available cap space to them right now, so it wouldn't be like a huge detriment if they did it. And then UFAs like Phil DiGiuseppe, Sheldon Rempal, Alex Chason, Brad Richardson, and Brandon Sutter. If you were to bet, how many of these guys do you think actually come back? Because I'm thinking maybe 4, maybe
Wow.
max.
I honestly would be surprised if it was that high. Like, I think
Oh, really?
I'm looking at like even like maybe 2 or 3. Like,
I figure like Yoho Lamico and Matthew Highmore are kind of guaranteed, like unless they were trying to monetize their signing rights by trading them somewhere else for someone younger. Because we talked about this, I think, like ages ago, but like Matthew Highmore's numbers, like away from Tyler Mott, were like just downright bad. So it's like if the team saw that, maybe they were like, let's just like sell high if we possibly can. But like I would bet those two, Sheldon Rempal and probably Mike DiPietro would be
yeah,
coming back. Even though there are rumors right now that Mike DiPietro is likely going to be moved. There was
yeah,
apparently interest from Montreal, the Montreal
yeah, Montreal.
Canadiens. So maybe they don't sign him, but they trade the signing rights to Montreal. I could see that happening too. I think Michael DiPietro would actually be really fun in Montreal.
That
Like,
would be fun.
I don't know why. I just think that'd be like a good fit.
Yeah.
He doesn't really strike me as the type that fits well with Ian Clark's very like rigid, no personality goaltending style. Like he's like doesn't like Thatcher Demko like selling out saves, and that's all Michael DiPietro does when he's on is selling saves and doing like highlight shit, like crazy windmill stick glove saves and diving like a madman to make like clutch moves. So it's like it would make sense if like he was like if Ian Clark was just like, this fucking kid is going to be the death of me with his personality. I keep telling him to trim those sideburns, and he never does it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think DiPietro is probably going to go. I think there's like, and I think it was talked about that they want to get him a fresh start kind of thing, which makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense for a goaltender who's been through.
Wasted.
Yep, wasted is the great question. Is the great way of putting it. Goaltender who, for had it not been for the way that they handled the pandemic season, shortened season,
Mhm.
he might have been a big part of the long term future. But they they completely torched his trajectory based on that. And yeah, if you're a goaltender, if you're a goalie, there's only so many jobs in the NHL. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't really want to stay in that situation either. And it's not this current management team's fault that happened, but like it
But
is what it
like
is.
when the well is soured, right? It's kind of hard to like, fix it, especially when it's
Yeah.
like a brand new group who doesn't know what you really went through, because all you can say is, yeah, like Mikey, we trust you, we believe in you, like we're gonna do whatever we can to keep you. But like at the end of the day, if the guy's like, sorry, dude, like I just don't want to be here anymore, like there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, and there's already lots of goaltender, and you can see the future, like set up as it is, where it's going to be like, okay, Demko's the starter for the next foreseeable future, so that job's not available to you, and even if it
Hmm.
were, Artur Silovs is already kind of coming up the rear here as kind of the guy who that would probably be going to if there was a succession plan in place, sort of thing, right? So like you're
Yeah.
already kind of seeing your role completely diminished in that front. So it makes a lot more sense for you to go to a city that, or a market that has more open spots ready for a goaltender that's maybe like closer to the cusp than say, than they have right now.
Hmm. Um. Other than that, though, we get some draft talk because we are obviously getting a lot of rumors right now that, just tonight we're reading who is it, Elliot Friedman saying like, or who is it, John Shannon saying that the second overall could be in play from New Jersey if
Wh-
if they were going to trade for JT Miller, like, so that's what he's
So
hearing.
there's been a few things like that, yeah, where it's like, oh my God, so like,
It's all
hey,
like speculation. There's nothing like concrete.
yeah,
It's just like these media guys who like hear things and they're like, yeah, the second overall, I've heard everyone's willing to trade down. I've also heard that Jesper Bratt's name is out there. Well, I don't know. Maybe that gets traded for Miller. Like there's nothing behind it. It's like just naming hockey names and having a great time.
Yes. I mean, even since I will say though, like even since we started recording this show, there have been more and more quotes about JT Miller specifically. And I think Satyar Shah said on Canucks Central today about how how we should have like an idea, we should have like more almost like 100% like clarity on where they plan on going with JT Miller within the next day or so, which makes a lot of sense because Miller is very easily presents the guy who has the most immediate trade value out of this group. And I like, as far as whether he's staying or going, I mean, I think it's a foregone conclusion. He's gone. I don't see him coming. I don't see him coming back.
I was not convinced until Elliot Friedman changed positions and was like, yeah, the Canucks are realizing it's too difficult to sign an extension. And it's all signs are pointing towards Miller moving on. Like Elliot Friedman's usually pretty neutral and doesn't really like to speak in the affirmatives, like something is set unless his intel is good. And so if his intel is saying the Canucks don't think an extension's going to work and he's going to move, you best believe he's going to move. It's just a matter of when. Like if it's going to happen at the draft, definitely could see that happen. Could also see it like just like not happening at all, and it happens maybe towards the beginning of the season. But I bet if you're JT Miller, you're probably like, look, I've got 2 young kids. If you're gonna trade me, please do it like in July or August before school season starts, because that's a huge pain in the ass. So there is some kind of incentive to get stuff done like as soon as possible.
Yeah,
it would be really spicy. I mean, the first live in. So this is the crazy thing. The last in-person draft was 2019 when the Canucks had a first-round pick and then traded one for JT Miller.
That was
so. You imagine?
I was there. I was in the building for that. That was fun.
Now imagine the next in-person draft, the first one in 2 years, and it kicks off with you have a trade to announce, and it's JT Miller once again being traded for a first-round pick. That would be some elite tier levels of spice.
Yes, T. Like
the T, as they say.
That was because that happened on day 2 of the draft, and it happened like right at the beginning of like round 2. I want to say when I was there on my like $10 ticket to get in for that second day, because the second day is way more boring than the first day.
Yeah.
And it was like, and like people around me are like, oh my god, they trade. Who's JT Miller? I'm like, oh, he's pretty good actually. Like that's actually a pretty good like look for the Canucks that they got JT Miller. But yeah, so the quote from Friedge is from his 31 Thoughts article yesterday is, whether it's the Rangers or Washington or someone else, the Canucks will aim higher than Minnesota's return for Kevin Fiala and should get it for JT Miller. It's going to be too hard to get an extension done. The Canucks could surprise us. The Tyler Myers rumors have been there forever. They've got a price they want paid to consider it, but a few teams have suggested they might do something we haven't thought of yet. Which
that's a whole lot of information. That's almost just like that's just like Elliot Friedman being like, Canucks fans, go nuts.
You're gonna have a fun week.
It's gonna be a fun week. Random crap. You have fun dissecting this.
Which, like, in a way, it is one of those things where it's like, oh man, like there probably won't, like it'll probably be much, knowing the NHL, it'll probably be much more underwhelming than that. It'll probably be like one trade, like, which will still be big regardless of what they do. But if they got all of that put together to get some different deals done to like completely reshape the way the Canucks go into the season, like holy crap, like what a week to be covering the Canucks for a living, right? Like, oh man, there's some good stuff here. Like Miller is, like there's so much trade value there that it does seem like, okay, if it's going to get done, you're going to get it done before the draft, before anything, and recoup either a first round pick this year, or even a second, and try and get a prospect or two out of another team. Because like, and we'll talk about Kevin Fiala in a bit here, but like, there is clearly the market value is there for a guy who scored 99 points last year in a non-contract year. Like that's there's clear that the market is never going to be higher for JT Miller. And based on where your window is at for where you're going to be competitive, it doesn't line up for you to try and get that extension done. So you are much better off making the deal now, getting some really good assets back for him and seeing what you can do at the draft with those. Like that's the way they should be looking at this. And I think it's going to get done.
Yeah, it's kind of all signs are pointing to yes, which would be good because the draft needs spice, and yeah, I'm a big fan for that. Canucks right now only have 6 picks. They're still missing their second, which was traded away in the OEL Garland trade. They've kind of hinted that they do want to acquire a second round pick for this draft. In so many words, maybe that's kind of what they're after is a first and a second, or maybe it doesn't even include a first, it just includes a second and then like a future first, like not necessarily one for this draft. Like could be happening. It's going to be spicy though. I'm excited. But
Yeah.
why don't we get into some NHL news, because there was some other spice going on which we were kind of laughing about before we started recording, but then as we
Yes.
always tend to do, we say, why are we doing this for free? We should be recording what we're talking about. So
Yes.
the only real trade that's actually happened of significance since Colorado beat Tampa to win the Cup.
There's two. I think there's two.
Oh yeah, well the Kevin Fiala one, sure, that one happened.
This
like,
one's bigger.
I think. Yeah,
I think that would happen only
right?
like on yeah. I think that happened. If I remember correctly, I think that happened on like Friday or something.
Yeah,
like right.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, like
but
right before
that
the weekend.
yeah, that one we don't have much to talk about because the other thing that's like funny about that trade is like LA is a team that won a cup, rebuilt, returned to playoffs, and is now reloading for future playoff runs with a very young core in like a fraction of the time that the Canucks have taken to do whatever it is the fuck that they're doing. Real cool. Big fan of that.
Great. It's great.
But we're not going to talk about that because we talk about the LA Kings quite a bit because I'm a big fan of their organization. So we're going to go with the other major trade of the day, which was Ryan McDonagh, who waived his no trade clause to go to Nashville in exchange for Philippe Myers and Grant Mismash, which is not a made up player. That's his last name, Mismash.
Incredible
name. So this one's a bit spicy because apparently what happened was the Tampa Bay Lightning told Ryan McDonagh, you can waive your trade clause and we can send you to Nashville. Or if you don't wish to, we are going to put you on waivers to start the season so we can get your so you'll be like claimed for free by whoever wants you. And we know that Columbus is going to want you. And so McDonagh, wanting some agency in his trade or in his destination, opted to waive for Nashville because he didn't want to go to Columbus. And the Tampa Bay Lightning, once again, find a way to get out of their cap commitments for no cost whatsoever.
Yeah, they got paid to get rid of Ryan McDonagh.
Every year they pull it off. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Now we should preface this by saying that, okay, like even paid might be a strong word for what they actually got in return, because I guess Grant Mismash is not supposed to necessarily translate to any sort of NHL player. He's really just going to be an AHL guy. And then Philippe Myers is supposedly I remember last year somebody who made the joke that when the Canucks and the Predators played, how funny it was that there were two Myers on the ice that were both very much not fan favorites in terms of
very, very big, and that's about it.
Yeah, they both have very similar striking issues in their game and holes in their game. Oh my God. So Elliot Friedman tweeted out about the Philippe Myers. So he tweeted on Philippe Myers acquired by Tampa Bay in the McDonagh deal. He's a unique contract case. If bought out, the Lightning will have a $671,000 credit next season and then owe $733K the next year. So in other words, not only they could buy this guy out right now and somehow end up with extra money, like on top of the cap space they'd be getting by buying him out,
which is pretty cool. And it would be awesome if they actually did do that, but apparently they're actually interested in him, the player, which
And
is like par for the course for Tampa. They just like find random guys to be like credible defensemen for them, like Jan
oh yeah,
Ruda, Zach Bogosian, who like basically was like nothing by the time they got him. Kevin Shattenkirk, like they basically just like pair these guys with Victor Hedman or Sergachev or Cernak, and they're like, all right, you're gonna be good now, and that's how it works.
and then
Maybe
you're
they
like,
can
oh, I guess
repeat.
you're right.
Yeah, maybe they can repeat that with Myers. I don't know. Maybe this is them flying a little too close to the sun with what their defenders are capable of. Ryan McDonagh was apparently very well liked in that locker room, so you couple that with a Cup Finals loss. Maybe this is the start of the end, or this is the start of a new beginning where the Lightning are almost at the point where they're able to toll daily cap space, which is terrifying because look at what they've been able to do with no cap space in
Yeah,
LTIR and getting these people, these other GMs, to take on their bad contracts for nothing. And in some cases, paying the Lightning to take players off of their hands. Now they're going to have the ability to enter the trade deadline date with excess cap to sign whoever the fuck they want. That's terrifying. It's exciting because I, for one, want to see what they can creatively come up with because they've been very good at doing it so far. So this will be very interesting to see what they can do with that kind of cap space.
yeah.
But
It's just like it's Tampa's like
it's just Tampa running show, which is
it's insane.
so great.
Yeah,
This does beg the question, though. What the fuck is Nashville doing? This is why
yeah.
we
What
started
are they
recording because
doing?
we were like,
Yeah,
we were trying to figure it out. We are like, okay, they traded Ryan Ellis for Philippe Myers and like someone else, like a cap dump, basically,
was it not
for
like
some
because
reason.
who is the third? Like it was a three-way deal, if I remember correctly. It was the deal. I think that did they get
No,
Cody
no,
Glass
Ryan
or no?
Ellis. Oh yeah, well yeah, they were
Ryan Ellis
separate.
was
They were
not. Was that
separate
not?
deals, but it was not a three-way trade. It was
It was
Philly grabbing Ellis, and they gave
yes,
up Philippe Myers and Nolan Patrick, and then in a separate trade, they traded to
Patrick.
Vegas Nolan Patrick for Cody Glass, who
Okay.
recently signed a 1-year, 2-way deal. So could you imagine the Canucks if they had drafted Glass over Elias Pettersson?
I
No.
try not to. I try not to because they
Those would
did
be the real dark days. But anyway,
that.
we're trying to figure it out because like trading Ryan Ellis, trading Victor Arvidsson, like those two moves kind of back to back in the same offseason kind of signified like okay, we're tearing it down. We need to start looking towards a rebuild. Philip Forsberg's a UFA and likely isn't going to re-sign in Nashville because like they don't have the cap necessarily to make it work. And then they trade Philippe Myers, who they just acquired, for Ryan Ellis for a much, much older defenseman in Ryan McDonagh at a much higher cap hit. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense. They basically worsened themselves off cap wise for an older player playing a less valuable side. Like Ryan Ellis was a right shot defenseman and he
Yeah.
was really good.
Yeah. And
And he was
like
loved by the locker room. So it's like you just like cratered your locker room so that you
yeah.
could get older
Yeah,
eventually.
career predator, and like yeah, and putting aside that he had like a rough year in Philadelphia with injury issues and other things. Like yeah, Ryan Ellis was a big part of their locker room for ages, and now like,
Mhm.
and McDonough's probably going to be liked in this locker room too. It's just a matter of like, again, like okay, yeah, you literally were just in the middle of rebuilding like last year, and your only reason you're here now is because you say Saros had a arguably like a heart caliber year for you,
Yeah.
and got in like Roman Yossi as well. Like they just stood on their head the entire time, got you there, and then as soon as your goaltender got hurt in the last week of the season, you got absolutely like the absolute shit kicked out of you by the Colorado Avalanche in the first
Yeah.
round.
That's the
Like
thing. It's like you trade for McDonagh after getting absolutely hemorrhaged. Like, wouldn't that be the sign? Like,
yeah,
hey, with my current group, I think we need to rebuild entirely. and
Yeah,
now's the perfect time to do it. Now that Forsberg is going to re-sign elsewhere, but like
yeah.
I don't
And
know
I
how you
get
could be like, you know what I needed to defeat Edmonton and not get swept in 4 games? A 33-year-old defenseman.
Yeah, I'm just like, okay, this doesn't what does this solve for you? Like your
It
problem
doesn't.
wasn't yeah, like there's yeah, like cuz yeah, you got some interesting pieces at forward like Tanner Jeannot, you've got Eli Tolvanen who's going to be pretty decent for you for the years leading up. But you've also got a bunch of issues where it's like, okay, well, we're paying Matt Duchene $8 million for the next 4 years.
Mhm.
We're paying Matthias Ekholm basically the same price that we're paying, more like a $500,000 difference to that we're paying for McDonagh to also be a left defenseman.
Yeah.
So okay, so now you've got a very old group. Literally all your defensemen on the left side are either 32 or 33. Okay.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
what else do you have? Well, we got Dante Fabro, sure. Jeremy Lauzon, who is signed
Oh yeah,
apparently
who was signed to a
signed
terrible contract. So yeah,
yeah,
speaking of like just like
4
what
years.
like
4
what
years.
direction are they going in? Because it's like all these deals seem to be like
S
they admitted they needed to rebuild and then they changed their minds when they like were presented with a good player.
Yeah, so the only possible scenario I can think of here, and this is a little bit there's layers to this a little bit, but, like, it came out, I think, like a month ago that the Predators were being sold to a new owner, and
That's right.
the only thought process I have here is that they're going, "Well, we can't sell we're gonna have a harder time selling a team that's tearing it down full rebuild, about to go and bottom out for dead last in the NHL to try and uh, turn back into a powerhouse again. It's going to be a lot harder for us to get the value we want out of that particular team. So they need to be at least like competitive. Like they need to be at least show the idea of competitive hockey. So that's
Mhm.
my only thought here is like maybe this is management going, well, okay, we need you to like going to like David Poyle and going, hey, we need you to make the team look at least semi decent so that we get our full
Yeah,
value for them when we
we
sell them.
need people to buy in and make us some of our investment back immediately.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're
Which
not going to do that if the team's not selling tickets. Like no one's going
yeah,
to pay you the full price, no matter how many years of good management the Predators of like we'll say okay, like hockey things aside, they've done a very good job at marketing themselves in that area compared to where they used to be. Like what, a decade ago they were almost in bankruptcy, and
mhm,
now they're like one of the considered like one of the best cities to go see a hockey game. Like
yeah, they went from
yeah,
bankruptcy to like a cup run where they basically had salvaged the organization by building like a credible fan base that was actually like invested in their cup run and stuck around quite a
yeah,
bit. So I can understand if you're the new owners and you're like, well, I know when this team was bad, they were near bankrupt, so I can't be buying a team and then immediately be losing on my investment the first year. So you
yeah,
need to make it competitive, which
yeah.
that's their prerogative as ownership. But like from an outsider's perspective, you're looking at David Poyle's decision making on who he wants to keep and wants to give up, and you're like,
Yeah.
ugh.
You're not only looking at that, you're also looking at the fact that he's been the only GM for the last, what,
Yeah, 25 years.
30
It was his
was it
25-year anniversary the other day.
it's really? Oh my
Yeah.
god, yeah, 25 years as GM, which, like, hey, for a league that has as much turnover as the NHL does, sometimes to a degree that's almost a little bit too much, you're
Yeah, a little
like,
bit.
good for you for sticking around that long, but also everybody in management has a shelf life. You can't ch
Yeah.
eventually your ideas are not gonna be top of the line like, genius moves anymore. Eventually, you're gonna run out of,
As they
like,
say,
that.
uh, everyone everyone eventually loses their hardball or their fastball. Like it's
So, it's
just
about
like what happens, right?
can you turn into a curveball or, like, a sinker thrower, essentially?
Yeah, exactly. And for David Poyle's sake, like it took him 23 years, or sorry, not 25. With 25,
Tw
it took him 18 years to get to a cup final with
Yeah,
Nashville,
it
and in the
it took
years since, not much.
Not much. They did win the President's Trophy that one year, but that's it. Like that's really it. Like it's such a mixed bag, and like yeah, and not even like forget like even that. Like remember when the Canucks met them in the playoffs in 2011 in the second round. That was their coming off the heels of their first playoff series win. Like that was the first time they won a
Yeah.
series. Like, and that was again what by that point that had been 15 years in.
Yeah, it was a long time, and I don't think they've actually won a round since their cup run.
I think they won the first year. I think because they won the
Oh,
first
that's
year out
right. You know what?
because
Because in the second round they lost to
Winnipeg beat
Winnipeg.
them.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah, Winnipeg beat them in round
two, I think. Yeah,
two, and Pecorine was just abysmal
yeah,
in that series. But yeah, I think since then you're right. I don't think they've won one again since. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
It's been a bit of bad news for them. Okay,
good
so
uniforms though.
okay, good yellow jerseys. More
Good
yellow the
yellow
better.
jerseys.
All right, coaching news that is not Canucks related. First things first. The Winnipeg Jets go from possibly signing Barry Trotz to Rick Bowness. The fan base was rightfully not very happy with the signing. Rick Bowness seems like a delightful fella, but a good hockey coach he is not.
He's okay. He's an you know what like okay.
He's not
He
a
did
strategist. He's not a strategist. He's just like he's a good motivator, I guess. He's a good assistant coach, but like, I just don't think you'd trust him to be like your guy for a team that clearly needs like direction, like
yeah
the Winnipeg Jets do. Like Paul Maurice on his way out was like, there's nothing else I can tell these guys to get them to get their shit together.
yeah
I don't know if Rick Bowness is the type of guy that's gonna somehow pick up where he left off.
Yeah,
You know,
and you were a big Jets follower for quite a while there. We've almost haven't actually talked about the Jets enough on this show in recent weeks because of how
it's because it's painful.
wild thing. Yeah, it's very painful. Like yeah, the thing that I find most interesting with Rick Bowness is that he's not really any different from Paul Maurice as far as a coach's like coaching style is concerned. Like, so I'm kind of like, how is this any like? You're not even necessarily taking a step back. You're just kind of doing the same thing.
You're just doing the
You're
same
doing.
thing, right? Like you're just
Yeah,
sidestepping like over and over, which like, I mean,
yeah.
like
Which
we were
has
talking. I
been
think we were talking about
kind
the
of
last
Kevin
episode.
Cheveldayoff's entire tenure as Jets is coach. It's Jets GM.
Yeah,
Is just kind of doing
it's
there.
just sideways motions to try and build a contender. Like you can only do so much, but for them, it's always been we need to build through the draft because guys don't want to play here. Like Pierre-Luc Dubois apparently is telling them straight up, like, yeah, I'm out as soon as I'm a free agent. So it's like they just have all these things working against them, which sucks. So it's like I'm sure they were wanting Barry Trotz like legitimately, but it was like, okay, we can't get him. Like who's literally next on the option? Like,
Yeah, and it seemed like Rick. The funniest thing about all this too is it seemed like Rick Bowness was almost was planning to retire or like was done with coaching after this. Like all the signs seemed to point to him like what the Stars being done with him was like that this was going to be it for him for
yeah,
at least a while. So it's one of those. Are you sure you really want a head coach who's kind of seemed like he was
foot out the
over it?
door.
Yeah, who kind of seemed like
Yeah.
he was over it in the last job. Like, is that really the direction you want to go here if you're Winnipeg? Like, again, they're not close to competing in terms of what they are. They have Connor Hellebuck, and that's about it. And like there's not really there's a couple good pieces there, like with Mark Scheifele and like Dubois. But again, how much longer do you have with those guys? So it's like, well,
Mhm.
all right, I guess whatever you want. I guess it's one of those like, well, you're just kind of buying time, I guess.
Yeah, until someone else like comes up that's willing to work there. Besides that, Paul Maurice, speaking of, was hired by the Florida Panthers. I don't know why
Nuts.
they didn't just stick with
Yeah.
the
What?
guy, but
Oh
like,
God.
so
Yeah.
speaking of like weird team directions, Nashville, not sure what they're doing. Florida, after winning their first round ever, and then getting tuned by a team that is legitimately very good, to then they overhauled their entire coaching staff. Like all their assistants were gone too. Like again, like I don't know if you can blame. I mean, Andrew Brunette wasn't great during the Tampa series, but it was
Yeah. He
kind
was
of like,
clearly outcoached. Like, there's no doubt about that.
yeah, but it was just kind of like, would would Paul Maurice have fared better with that same group against Tampa? Like, I doubt it.
No.
Tampa was
Yeah.
on one. Like they went to the finals. Like you can't. I don't know how your takeaway from this would be like, yeah, Andrew Burnett isn't the guy moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like,
Tampa, not only was Tampa on one, the Panthers went almost comically ice cold to the point where it's like, okay, I don't see them doing that again. Like it's one of
yeah,
those, like their power play was so bad that it's like, okay, well, I don't think it's possible for you to be this bad again. This is clearly
this is some
the worst luck of your life.
serious PDO luck not in their favor. Where it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, your power play was like 1% over 14 playoff games or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
that's fucking hard to pull off.
And
That's some
like,
bad luck.
yeah, it's the snowball effect of them doing things where it's like, okay, you can see that after it started going bad for them, they started completely getting the yips and going for like, and like making uncharacteristic decisions. Like there was like, what was it? Like people kept being like, hey, why isn't Barkov passing the puck to Huberdeau on the
Yeah,
power play? Because they were that worried about it and they
yeah.
got in their heads. And like, yeah, maybe a better coach, maybe a better coach in the motivational department fixes that to an extent.
Yep,
But
maybe.
yeah, I don't see any. Andrew Burnett literally took a team that lost their like that. Well, I shouldn't say lost. Like their coach got rightfully let go for being
amidst a troubling investigation.
amidst
So it was completely warranted, but like, yeah, it could have been a lot worse with the
and
transition to a new coach.
yeah. And like, would any of us had really faulted Florida if they had completely bottomed out this year based on that turmoil alone? Like,
No.
okay, like, yeah, like we would have been like, yeah, you guys completely went into a season thinking you had it all put together from to an extent, only to have the have to suddenly fire your coach midway through, not even midway through, like a season in, like a month in. And then Andrew Burnett took that team and made them a President's Trophy winner for the first time in their franchise's history. Like, in what universe do you not can you not go, well, we can give you a second chance here on this. That's sweet. After
you'll
the
learn
sweep.
from
Like,
this, like play like the logic from like ownership groups, like we expect our group to take another step next year. It's like, well, wouldn't your coach also be extended that rope given it's his first year behind the bench?
yeah, like
I don't know, it's
dumb.
really
Like
goofy. That's all.
Paul Maurice. The problems the Panthers had last year, Paul Maurice is not. I don't think anyway is going to solve any of those. He's a defensive coach on a team that was actually decent defensively. Like, okay, sure. What, I guess you'll be fine. Like you'll be like whatever. Sergei Bobrovsky, you're is not going to necessarily be exactly the same goaltender he was last year, which is also famous for Paul Maurice teams. I don't know if you've ever seen his history. He has up until like Connor Hellebuck, he had a long history of running into the worst luck when it came to goalies and always having the worst goaltending through no fault of his own. Like having to coach a Vesa Toskala team, Toronto Maple Leafs team.
Well, even like in his first 4 years of Winnipeg, it was like, okay, Andre Pavlik is your guy, and Andre Pavlik was never meant to be like a stud. He was like in the Halak vein, where it's like he'll be a perfectly fine backup. He
might get hot for you.
Yeah, he might
9-10,
but like you can't run the wheels off of him. But like was their only guy that they ever had. So it's like, oh, you guys just don't have any luck on your side. All right, last coaching thing. Jim Montgomery hired as the Bruins head coach because they fired Bruce Cassidy, who went to
now the Knights
Vegas.
coach. Yeah.
Big ol' coaching carousel thing. I
don't have much to say on Jim Montgomery, really, because like I think he left. I remember he left Dallas under a bit of like mystery almost, but it was like, and it turned out later it was like for like I believe there was like
I believe it was
alcohol.
a bit of an alcohol issue. When he was with them.
Yes, which he has since gotten help for, which is great.
Yeah, good for him. I remember him being like actually like a pretty good coach with Dallas, even though it was really short lived.
Yes.
So
he wasn't particularly bad at his job by any stretch. No, if I remember correctly.
No, I remember
he wasn't blowing you away, but
yeah, I remember the vibe at the time was just kind of like, oh, it's a shame he got fired because of whatever issues he was having, because he was like, for a first year coach in the NHL with like no AHL experience, like he went from the NCAA straight to the NHL. Like that's like he's showing really well with his team, and so I was kind of like, oh, this is a big bummer for them, but good pickup from Boston, I guess. Especially considering the weirdness of of Bruce Cassidy's firing. So to pick up like a decent enough coach, like who kind of salvaged his time with St. Louis under Craig Berube. Yeah, good pickup for them. One of the least dumb coaching decisions of this offseason, but there will be plenty more, I'm certain, over the coming weeks and months. Otherwise, I think that probably wraps it up for this episode of the CreaseCast. We've got a lot under our belt, and we're going to sign out before JT Miller gets traded to Carolina for Martin Nakash and a bunch of other stuff. So, as always, folks, I am Cody Sievertson. You can follow my work at Cody Sievertson on Twitter and Canucks Army. I just posted my report cards for the defensive group of the Abbotsford Canucks, so go check that out. Lachlan, where can they find you? Thank you.
You can find me on Twitter at Lock in the Crease. You can also find my writing work at Canucks Army. I'm sure I'll be doing a lot this week. It's draft week, so I'm sure I'll be doing a lot this week on draft coverage and stuff.
Hey, whatever pays the bills, baby.
Whatever pays the bills on talking about JT Miller. Well, we have plenty to go over this week, I'm sure, and next week as well. So check that there. Jamie's not here today, but you can find her on Twitter at _ Jamie K. Lowe on Twitter. She'll be back, I believe, maybe for
I love that the running gag for our show is whenever we get to her tag when she's not here, we just have no idea what it is. We're like, it's
because you know what it is. It's
Jamie something.
You
and I have 7
have
accounts too that we know of, right? So we always have to like think of which one we're plugging.
She people don't know this. She's actually at Taj 1944.
Yeah.
People did not. That's something we learned ourselves. Did I say that on recording?
It's because we split the account.
That's right. That's true. That I forgot. Everybody in Vancouver has the logins to that account.
Everybody on Canucks Twitter gets the login, and they get to post whatever they want once a day. Yeah. That's how it works.
Exactly.
That's how the system works. And otherwise, folks, we'll catch you on our next episode. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/CreaseCast. If you feel like throwing some money our way to support what we're doing here, that's patreon.com/CreaseCast with $1 and $5 tiers. Much appreciated to those that still subscribe to us. We really appreciate it. And you're going to be supporting us through the offseason. We appreciate that too. So stay tuned for more content from us. And we'll catch you next Monday after the draft, or maybe perhaps emergency episode, depending on what happens with JT Miller this week. Till then, folks, we'll catch you later. Bye.
Bye.